The altered dominant sound, that is the topic of this lesson. And what is the altered dominant sound? Well, it's actually the seventh mode of the melodic minor scale, but it's really kind of the chosen mode, if you will. Just like with harmonic minor, people tend to call out the Phrygian dominant position, thinking that that might be a scale in itself just because of maybe the ergonomics of it and the fact that Yngwie Malmsteen apparently is obsessed with that position, rightfully so. I like to mention the altered dominant in the kind of context of that concept where it is part of another scale, the melodic minor scale as I mentioned, but it has its own kind of flair, and I think outside of the kind of regular tonality, which is a little weird by itself, it can be extremely useful in other contexts. So I am going to first kind of outline just what this scale is. I'm going to call it a scale. Just know that I mean it's a mode, a melodic minor mode, but for all intents and purposes, I'm just going to call it the altered dominant scale. And what you should know about this scale is that it's actually the major scale with a bunch of altered notes. So it's actually the in-between notes of a major scale. That's how I kind of think of this sound and how I think of the positions and patterns on the fretboard. So with that in mind, there is a lot of opportunity for chromatic licks and outside licks that really make your playing more interesting if that's what you're going for. Now in Guitar Super System Level 2, I dive deep into the melodic minor scale in all 7 modes. So we cover the altered dominant sound by default, but I've waited to introduce it until this level because it is a little bit more of an advanced concept to blend tonalities together when you're improvising. After all, my main goal is to help you find your voice on guitar and present as many concepts and sounds and ideas as I can in hopes that one of them or many of them stick in your playing. So the first thing I'll show you is just the altered dominant scale in itself. I'm going to kind of have a string pad in the background that is just playing a G dominant 7 altered chord. G7 alt would be the abbreviation for that, and I'm going to get the sound in your ears, and after that I'll show you a couple little exercises and licks that you can practice to help out your dexterity and technique and fingering. I'm using G as the root note as I like to do in my lessons, but just understand this scale shape can be transposed to any key you want it to. So now that you have that sound in your head, kind of weird, huh? Let's get even weirder and kind of make a little bit more of a musical statement to try and further ingrain this sound. That was pretty snazzy, wasn't it? How about one more? So those are just a couple little licks for you. Again, if you wanted to play in like the B altered dominant sound, you could just transpose those. It's a great ear training exercise if you want to try something like that. But again, really what we're going for at this moment is getting the sound in our head because it is kind of wonky. With that said, how can we actually use this? Unless you're like some avant-garde jazz cat, you may kind of be put off by this sound. So I'm not a jazz cat by any means. However, I do like jazz, but I really like blues and rock, and I like kind of more traditional sounds when it comes to guitar solos, but I also like to have interesting guitar solos. So with that in mind, I'm going to show you how I might employ this sound in a more traditional context.